Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hi, welcome back to this episode of How Leaders Behave. And in this episode, we'll explore the motivating drivers of the Energizing Leader. Welcome back, Mark Hoare, as well.
Thank you very much. Good to be back, Peter.
So my name is Peter Agnew and we're from People Development Australia, and we're going to have a look at this next dimension, which is about energizing leaders. In this episode, we'll unpack the energizing leader and look at the development areas for that particular leader. Mark, we've sort of had a prelude into some of the models that we use for this series, but take us through. We're using the 8 dimensions of leadership for this particular episode.
Yep, so again, if you refer to the original session 1, it obviously goes through the whole model and how you can actually find out where your space on this model is, because obviously it's an important part to find that out. And if you are watching this because you are an energizing leader, then typically you will be coming out of the I in the DISC model. And that's why we're going to be talking about the energizing leader today.
Fantastic. So if we do have a look at that DISC profile, Mark, the I you just mentioned, it's that sort of outgoing, extroverted, high energy, people focused, seeing the environment as quite accepting, fits in well with the energizing approach.
Yeah, warm, friendly, never met a stranger. In fact, yeah, if you look at the approaches that actually make it up, you know, that enthusiasm piece, often bright colors, you know, larger than life, very typically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, before we get on to another shirt joke, we'll just move very quickly to the 3 behaviours of the energizing leader. We'll walk through these very simply, Mark. We'll have a look at what are the natural styles of the energizing leader, and then we'll unpack maybe some of the development areas. Again, the model gives us 8 approaches to leadership, tries to break down the complexity of leadership so we can try to learn the lessons for our own leadership styles, but what are some of the other behaviours that we can actually draw on in leadership, because all of these 24 behaviours are really important, aren't they? Leaders need to do all of these 24 behaviours.
And it's the self-reflection piece, and I think that's the piece that we get when Peter and I are working with leadership and senior leadership teams. Sometimes it's not obvious. If you've not done the work and don't know where you are coming from, it's an important part of the jigsaw piece that if you don't have, it's just not going to work for you. So it's a big part of what we do is help people on the journey. Obviously, we're going to give you a flavour of that today, but it certainly doesn't take the place of a really great program, that's for sure.
Fantastic. So the 3 behaviours of the energizing leader, let's unpack them just very quickly, Mark.
Sure.
Showing enthusiasm. This is about high positive energy.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that they are always on.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful.
When it's not, except when it's not.
Except sometimes when it's not. You know, when things are hard, or when things really do require, buckling down and trying to fix the problem. Being on might not be the right way to go.
Yeah. So even if you're not an energizing leader, these 3 behaviours are going to be important when leading others. In times of setbacks, delays, things in the workplace that go wrong, change, all of those things. People in teams need leaders who show high positive energy in some ways, don't they?
Absolutely.
They need enthusiasm.
They want someone to follow.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So as we go through this one, it will be a little bit about if you're in one of the other dimensions of the DISC profile, or if you largely affiliate with a couple of the other leadership perspectives in this, knowing that these 3 behaviours will be important for leadership.
that rallying piece as well, the ability that the energizing leader has to really reach into you and make you feel like you're capable of doing more and going beyond. That's a great ability that they have. And it's a great leadership trait that we should all learn to develop, that's for sure.
Yeah, agreed. So the goals one there, rallying people to achieve goals, is going to be part of the energizing approach. This is really probably aligns well with goal setting theory. We set goals in the workplace, whether it's through KPIs, performance reviews, whether it's more larger organisational goals, or whether it's just simple task stuff. Leaders in this style have a really natural way of getting people enthusiastic about achieving goals. They really have an ability to get people excited about some future destination, which is what leadership's all about.
I mean, the main priority of somebody with the I is that enthusiasm piece. And they say that one of the most infectious infectious personality traits is enthusiasm, and that's what these guys have in spadefuls.
Yeah. Of course, along with enthusiasm and rallying people and motivating people, these leaders are really good at connecting with others. Sometimes it does matter who you know in business.
Yep.
So in this style, it's about these leaders really get out and attach to others. They build networks, and I know when we do 360s, sometimes people get feedback that's fantastic from their direct reports and maybe from their manager, but sometimes their peers or other groups of people don't really have that same attachment. So this is probably about energizing leaders really appreciate that they need to build networks all around them. Appreciating relationships before they even need to call on them is a really important part for energizing leaders. It's quite natural for them too as well, isn't it?
I remember one of the gentlemen I had the pleasure of working for, there would have been about, I don't know, maybe 100 people on the shop floor. He would know everybody's name, he would know everybody's partner's name, and most likely he would know their children's names. And it was just what he did because he just knew and was that person that built those relationships. And and if he needed something done, that was a bit outside the box or they needed some overtime, he just need to go and ask and they'd all be willing to do it for him.
Yeah. So if that sort of high energy and positivity is a little bit more difficult for you, we can take a lot of lessons from the energizing leader. We do know that relationships and building relationships will be important. Having that high positive energy in times of setbacks, delay, and when things go wrong in the workplace will help people to drive forward and achieve their goals. There's going to be some really good things about our energizing leader, but there's going to be some things that they may overuse or be some things when they're not at their best that impacts their leadership style. So if we have a little bit of a look at going through and looking at the energizing leader at their best, there's a couple of key attributes while they're at their best.
Yes, obviously you can read that. They're upbeat, they're willing to take on new challenges and take chances on new colourful ideas. And even when they've made a decision badly, they can make that decision right.
Yeah.
It will fix this. It will be okay. And they are, as it says, they're always willing to take chances on new wonderful ideas.
Yeah.
And that's what makes them great to be around.
Yeah. And sometimes that high positive energy is a really good thing because people are infected by that.
Yeah.
But the positivity sometimes, the over-optimistic side can be something that affects leaders negatively in some ways as well. So at their worst, we've got a couple of things, particularly around consistency and a little bit of that sort of erratic behaviour that may be sort of emotionally sort of charged in some ways or done on a whim based on an emotional feeling around something.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is in working with somebody in that energizing leadership space is that their thought process is not consecutive. It's not obvious. It's not linear. It's A, Q, Z, P, C. It's all over the place. Yeah. And whilst intuitively they know what they want to say, they come across as very scattered. But they don't need that consistency. But unfortunately, the rest of the workforce is not made up solely of people of their style.
Yeah,
so it can be a real challenge to be around those people because you just can't follow their logic.
Yeah. So there will be some really fantastic attributes to this particular style, but like with all the styles, there will be some sort of pools to sort of say, hey, here's a couple of things that you could develop and grow in. If we look at the leadership style in a bit of a glance, there's some real key attributes that we can unpack for this leadership style.
So I think that the what's interesting is the goal is around that popularity and excitement piece, and what sits behind that is that I only feel important if I'm being liked.
Yeah.
I only feel important if my people are excited, and if all of that is taken away, then I really start to worry about who I am.
Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges of this style is that that your confidence in who you are has to be beyond just being popular and getting people excited.
And that feeling internally within ourselves also impacts on how we judge others as well.
Yep.
So we'll probably judge people on their social skills and their openness and probably their own positivity and enthusiasm in some ways.
In fact, I was doing a program recently where somebody very high in I in the DISC profile, which obviously aligns with this model, totally struggles with the people in the opposite quadrant, which is the high C or the resolute leader.
Deliberate.
Yeah, the deliberate piece, because they are, they are understated. They appear, shy and quiet. They're not. They're just internally processing. And so these people are judging those guys as not having social skills, they're not being open and they're not being enthusiastic, and they're writing them off, and actually they're a valuable contributor to the organization.
Yeah, definitely. Influences others by charm, optimism, energy, personal connection. There is a real people dimension here, and it is still around that higher energy in some ways. Sometimes overusing some of those things as well.
Yeah, and the problem with when it's overused, it tends to dilute its impact. So if you're always fabulous and you always look beautiful, and every time everything you do is always wonderful, it becomes to be less wonderful. Yeah. There's a particular country that we go on holiday sometimes, and if you say thank you, the immediate response is you're welcome. Yeah. And the more you say thank you, the more your welcomes you get back, and you just think, well, all I wanted to do was say thank you. And I think that's an example of that overusing.
Yeah, and of course under pressure, because the energizing leader likes to interact with all of the environment, they'll have lots of ideas and they'll entertain a lot of different ways of doing things, but probably under pressure they may become a bit disorganized in that sense. They've committed to a lot of things. They've had lots of idea generation in the brainstorming session. They've got those big lists. When they get back to their office or their desk, though, they've got that sort of, here's a lot of stuff that's going to take that sort of energy to wade through slowly, that doesn't have that people connection in some ways. So it can be a little bit disorganized with the amount of things the energizing leader sometimes takes on.
Yeah, they're too optimistic and they take on too many things. So as a result, they put pressure on themselves because they're not good at prioritizing about what needs to be done, and it can all start to unravel and come apart at the seams. And what happens with that is that disorganization becomes frantic. That frantic can become highly charged and highly emotional, and so they can be a bit unpredictable in terms of who am I going to get today.
Exactly. So we've talked about this leader has that real social connection and sees themselves as valuable if they do have those connections. So the fears, the opposite to that will be things like rejection.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.